Wel, siwmai, rydych chi croeso I sesiwn y noswaith gyda cynhadledd Argo Navis. Welcome to the evening session of the Argo Navis Follow the Stars Conference. It's a Menter transnational project that is receiving funding from the Welsh Government, Welsh Government's Rural Communities Rural Development Programme. And we've had a really good day so far. Interesting people, stories to tell, messages. That's key to today's success, the messages that we've had from so many people. My name is David Wyn Morgan, and I work for the Cambrian Mountains Initiative, and I'm helping out today presenting some incredible speakers. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Portia Jones, somebody who I've worked with quite a bit over the last 2 years, really, on various projects in the Cambrian Mountains. Pip spent 7 days and 7 nights in the Cambrian Mountains in March last year, the first week of March, and we managed to get Pip out of the Cambrian Mountains safe, just as lockdown was coming in. But Pip had a great experience, day and night, in the Cambrian Mountains, staying in 7 different places and having full days of activities. And one thing that Pip didn't experience last year was some dark skies experiences, some astrophotography, some stargazing. And back in May, I think this year, Pip arrived in the Cambrian Mountains to create a Cambrian Mountain podcast supported by Visit Wales, and we are eagerly awaiting the publication or the release broadcast of this podcast. And Pip is well known for being a travel writer, travel blogger, as well as a podcaster. And she's also created her own Travel Goals podcast. And she writes for many publications across the UK and further afield. And back in May, Pip, for the first time, I think, experienced some stargazing and astrophotography here in the Cambrian Mountains, in fact in the Elan Valley International Dark Sky Park. It was a pleasure to wake you up at 12:30 in the middle of the night and say, oh, let's go Eskimo. And we did. We went to a very special place in the Elan Valley, and we got out and we got to see the incredible night sky that we have here in Wales, and especially in the Cambrian Mountains. And it was a very, very clear night. And of course, that's what we always want as stargazers, astronomers and astrophotographers. That's when we really appreciate what we can see, is when it's clear. And Pip, I'm going back to exactly the same place tonight with some people. Which is why I'm doing this bit over in Rhayader at the moment, being holding everything together, hopefully, for this conference in Rhayader, just outside the Elan Valley International Dark Sky Park. So I'll be back up at that shelter tonight with a crew of people, and it doesn't look too clear. Unfortunately, we've had three clear nights in the Cambrian Mountains, but I'm crossing my fingers and we'll have a clear night like we had with you. But thank you for your time, Pip. Really appreciate this. You have had some stargazing and astrophotography experiences, and I know you really enjoyed that night. And I know you've come back as well. You've been back in the Cambrian Mountains recently. So it's over to you. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you're going to say and what you're going to show, and what your key messages are as well about how to follow the stars.
Thank you, David. Bore da. Hello, everyone. As David said.
No, it's not Bore da. It's not Bore da. It's not with that. Bore da is good morning, and that's tomorrow morning. We'll cut that bit out, okay?
I am actually Welsh as well. I'm from Cardiff, as I'm sure many people can tell. I am desperately trying to improve my Welsh, which I would describe as shoddy right now, but David has been helping me master some of the basics, thank God, because my Welsh, unfortunately, right now is hideous. I have downloaded an app and it's on my to-do list, but in the world of journalism, it's insane deadlines and lots of press trips, as David well knows. So what I'm going to do is try and share my screen, and hopefully this will work here. Bear with me one sec. Let me know if it doesn't, because technology is rarely my friend. Okay.
I love that photograph. I love that photograph.
I know, that's one that David took.
It's very popular. I know it's appeared in the Brat Guides, Dark Skies of Britain and Ireland as well, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah.
So that photograph is doing the rounds. So of course that's me and my husband on that stargazing experience that David was just talking about. Amazing night, and as you can see, we were certainly blessed with lots and lots of stars. So as David said, I'm a travel journalist and podcaster, and I've just started dabbling a little bit in the world of stargazing. And whilst in this conference, there'll be many people who are far more knowledgeable about stargazing and astrophotography and things like that than me, I thought it would be a unique thing to share perhaps a media journalist perspective, because I write about stargazing, outdoor adventures, Wales travel, and I also work with tourism boards like the Cambrian Mountains to promote these unique travel experiences, including stargazing. So I thought I'd try and give my perspective of why I think stargazing and astrophotography is important for Wales as a growing travel trend. So just a little bit about me. Like David said, I write for a lot of different outlets in Wales, the UK, and across the world, and I have a really strong focus on adventure travel and outdoor experiences, and especially travel in Wales. Obviously, due to the pandemic, I've had to switch my focus entirely to Wales and the UK of late, but that's been actually really nice because I've got to do things like stargazing in the Cambrian Mountains and having unique travel experiences on my own doorstep, which is incredible because normally I spend probably about 60% of the year on the road in international destinations, but for the last year and a half, I've had a very strong Welsh and UK travel focus, like I said, with a lot of adventure travel in as well, so that's been good. So let's talk a little bit about the night sky and astrotourism. So the night sky is where, in my opinion, science meets myths and legends, with the intriguing pattern of stars woven into storytelling across the ages. Connecting with the beauty of our natural world and gazing up at those constellations can do wonders for your well-being. It's a really serene and peaceful experience to go stargazing in Wales. I've been fortunate to go a few times now and experience excellent conditions, and you really do feel this connection with the natural world when you're in a very remote, quiet area and you can't really hear anything, and all you can really see, because it's so dark at these dark sky sites, is this absolute blanket of stars above you. It really is a truly unique travel experience, and one that I would recommend in Wales and perhaps other stargazing sites across the world as well, if you get the opportunity. So astrotourism is a growing travel trend that many destinations with dark skies can capitalise on, including right here in Wales. Let me try and move the next one. So what is astrotourism? Astrotourism has a few definitions online, but I think the one that I feel is closest to how I feel about it is purposely travelling to nature-rich, dark sky destinations that experience less light pollution, allowing you to spot stars more easily and possibly even photograph the cosmos too, which we will get onto in a little bit. So dark sky reserves, you probably, if you've been tuning into other sessions in this conference, heard this term, or maybe you're new to it. I was certainly new to it when I first started learning more about stargazing. Now, the toughest designation for all destinations is the Dark Sky Reserve. It's reserved only for places that offer exceptional or distinguished quality of starry nights and nocturnal environment that is specifically protected because of its stars. And this is according to the IDA, the International Dark Sky Association. We're very, very lucky here in Wales because we have 2 dark sky reserves, Brecon Beacons and Snowdonia, and the Elan Valley is also an international dark sky park. We've also got we also have a number of dark sky discovery sites across Wales, and you can go to these places and it's easily accessible to see those night skies. We'll get onto that in a little bit on how you can experience dark skies in Wales. So first things first, and this is very much where I started, is well, how do you stargaze? Is it as simple as going outside in your garden and looking up in the sky? Well, kind of, but not really. The optimal conditions for stargazing are to be as far away from light pollution as possible. And certainly where I live here in Cardiff, there are lots of street lights, shop lights. You can't really see the stars properly here. You need to get out of those city areas into those more rural areas and experience those properly dark skies in order to stargaze to the full effect. You also need to make sure that you go before the moon is full. You can check the phase of the moon before you set out, because obviously if the moon's out, you're going to have all that moonlight shining and not really giving you the best stargazing experience. There are several apps you can use to check stargazing conditions. Some of them David has shown me and some I've found online, and they include things like Clear Outside and Scope Nights. And you can use these apps to make sure you've got the best chance of spotting stars, especially if you're traveling for a few hours to access those starry skies. You want to make sure, obviously, the journey is worth your while. You can also try and photograph the stars. There's a picture of me trying to use David's camera as we explore the stars, planets, and passing meteor showers in the night sky. You might want to try and capture those luminous stars and dabble in a little bit of astrophotography. Star photography is becoming a really big part of stargazing, and lots of people are drawn to it, want to try it and get those enviable shots for Instagram. There's lots of impressive images to inspire you on social media, and some of the best ones I've seen have really interesting landscape features in the foreground with those beautiful starry skies as a backdrop. I'll be completely honest with you, astrophotography can be a little bit daunting. It's quite technical and you've got to be quite comfortable with your camera on manual settings. I took my 13-year-old nephew stargazing a few weeks ago in the Elan Valley, and he was determined he wanted a photograph of the Milky Way. He spent hours researching how to photograph the Milky Way, what to do, what settings you need, what apps you need to use. He watched hours and hours of YouTube videos. And I was really trying to manage his expectations because it is tricky to get those shots. And I was like, should we go to a proper event where people can show you how to do it? No, had to do it himself. So off we went to the Elan Valley, and all his research had paid off clearly because within his first go, he had managed to take a photo of the Milky Way. I couldn't believe it. Oh my goodness. He showed me up a treat because his camera skills are far better than mine, and he's only 13. I do a lot of photography for my job, but I would not describe myself as a professional photographer. I do my best, and I struggle a little bit with astrophotography. So what's on my list of things to do is perhaps attend a proper stargazing event where I can get advice, resources, information from the experts, or perhaps attend a proper class. There's lots of opportunities to do things like that in Wales, which is why it's an exciting time for astrotourism, because there's these unique experiences and events you can attend. Rather than just your plain old beach holiday, why not go on an astrophotography session? How cool is that? What a different type of holiday, and what a marvelous experience to have especially with family. Had such a good time taking my nephew, and it was incredible to see him so excited about something that wasn't computer games, to be honest. It was wonderful to see him really put his mind to something like astrophotography and actually achieve his photography goals. And I think, you know, it's really nice to get kids excited about the natural world and things like the night skies. And whilst not every child might be interested in astrophotography, they might find they might be interested in looking up at the night sky and spotting those constellations. There's apps you can use as well, which will show you the constellations. Excuse me. So you can actually utilize technology and the natural world. There's a few different ones on iOS and Android where you can point your phone up at the night sky like this, and it will show you what constellations are in the sky. And I think that's pretty cool as well. Obviously, don't always want kids on the phone at all times, but I'd argue that's a pretty good use for a phone. So I want to talk a little bit about why Wales is the perfect astrotourism destination. So I spoke to Visit Wales, who are the National Tourism Board that I do quite a lot of work with, and asked what they thought why it's a perfect place for stargazers. And they said, we have some of the darkest, clearest, most unpolluted skies in the world. In fact, Wales is the country with the highest percentage of its land with protected dark sky status in the world. So, as I said, there's many stargazing destinations across the world, but right here in Wales, if you're based here, what a fantastic opportunity to do something as unique and as special as stargazing. And you don't have to go that far. You don't have to fly anywhere or spend lots of money. There are places that should only be really a few hours from your house, which I think is absolutely amazing. So how are Visit Wales promoting astrotourism to those wider markets? Again, when I got in touch with them, they provided me with a bit of information and context as to what they're doing. And they said astronomy and Wales's dark skies provide an excellent opportunity from a tourism perspective, which I think is really true. Visit Wales have recently launched their autumn and winter campaign. So if you have a little look on social media, you should be able to start seeing some of this new campaign coming through. And part of that campaign focuses on those dark skies in Wales. As part of this campaign as well, they've produced all new content and they will be featuring that across their digital channels and platforms as well, which is great. Their campaign aims to inspire visits for autumn and winter and into 2022, which, as we know, if we're tourism professionals, is really important because we want to spread tourists out here in Wales rather than have everyone descend in the summertime. It's really a lot more sustainable to try and spread visitors out in those autumn, winter months as well. And stargazing is the perfect opportunity to do that. They are establishing a new seasonal approach to their consumer campaigns, and they're presenting Wales as a year-round destination with the goal of extending the tourism season and creating year-round jobs and economic growth, which is really what we want to see in Wales, isn't it? We want to see that elongated tourism season. We want more jobs, we want economic growth, but we want it in a sustainable and manageable context as well, because we do have to protect those landscapes here in Wales. And I think astrotourism is a good way of doing that, because we're trying to encourage that more sustainable idea around travel. What we're trying to do as tourism boards, as businesses, as individuals, is position Wales as the nation of dark sky opportunities. So where can you actually stargaze in Wales? So some of our best stargazing areas include the Brecon Beacons National Park, Snowdonia National Park, the Elan Valley, which I've mentioned, and Pembrokeshire. In these areas, you will find dark sky discovery sites, dark sky reserves, and also an international dark sky park. There's also an astrotourism trail, which has had quite a lot of media coverage, which is great, that you can follow as a visitor. It's a 50-mile route through Carmarthen, Ceredigion and Paris, which connects up those dark sky discovery sites, those stargazing hubs, things like that. And it's a really unique travel experience to have. So I do recommend you check that out if you get the opportunity. How are destinations utilising stargazing then? So many dark sky destinations and businesses as well are capitalising on our starry skies in a number of ways. So we've got our stargazing events. Now I know Alan runs a number of these and he is fantastic at those. Obviously they're weather dependent because we need clear skies for stargazing. So that's kind of the only downside to stargazing events, is that we really need that good weather here in Wales. There are dark sky accommodations as well. So this is accommodation that is very near dark sky sites, or perhaps even situated in some, and they are capitalising on encouraging visitors again to come in that more off-peak season and experience these starry skies. So injecting money in the quieter, colder months, which is exactly what we want to see here in Wales. We've also got some new observatories. As you can see in the photo there, that's David having a little bit of a look up in the starry sky, which is great. And we've got businesses and individuals running things like astrophotography sessions, which is ACES as well. It's encouraging people to come into Wales, learn a new skill, experience our landscapes, hopefully stay for a few extra days as well, because that's the big thing about utilising stargazing opportunities is we want visitors to come, we want them to stay the night, we want them spending money in those local economies, especially rural ones as well. So utilising those accommodations, perhaps going out for evening meals, staying for a few days, perhaps booking onto adventure activities or going shopping in the market towns, all those kind of things. If we can attract high value visitors, that's really, really positive for Wales. As I said before, especially in that kind of off-season time as well. So what can local businesses do? You can help create dark sky friendly accommodation. So you can get some astrotourism resources, including stargazing guides. Brat Guides have just released a new one about dark sky sites in Britain, which obviously includes Wales. And I believe there's some pictures that me and David took in that new guide. Yeah. So check that out. No, yeah, there. Oh, is he showing it? There we go. Yeah, fantastic. He's smart. I can't hear him, but he looks happy.
There's a 25% discount off this book if you go to the Brat Guides website, which is great. Cambrian 25 is the voucher code. So thanks to Brat Guides, and support this publishing company, please, because there's some nice stuff inside that little book you mentioned there.
Fantastic. Yeah, the Brat Guides are an excellent small company as well, exactly the sort of people we want to be working with here in Wales. Also, I've heard of guest houses and businesses doing things like having telescopes that guests can rent as well, which I think is really, really positive. A low-cost thing that accommodation and businesses can do is kind of upskill staff's knowledge on stargazing spots and how we can help visitors access them as well. I think that really adds to the overall visitor experience here in Wales if we're able to properly help visitors access those dark sky sites and give them any information and resources that they need. You can also run dark sky events or breaks. So Wigwam Hafren, which is a glamping site I've stayed at a few times in Stay Little, actually do a whole stargazing weekend in collaboration with Alan. And they do things like family-friendly workshops, activities, teaching you more about the dark skies, a bit about photography, and it's all within this beautiful glamp site with gorgeous countryside views in these wooden cabins that are really, really good fun to stay in. So if you can develop those dark sky unique breaks or work with other businesses, again, you might find you're attracting those more high value tourists as well, which is exactly what we want. You can also work in partnership with local tourism boards or other businesses. David from Cambrian Mountains is excellent at connecting businesses with each other, getting them to work collaboratively. not only to promote dark skies, but all the other incredible opportunities there are in the Cambrian Mountains, hiking, biking, things like that. I saw recently, and I'm sure David has more information on this, there's even dark sky produce now. And I thought, isn't that fantastic? I would not have thought of promoting the dark skies here in Wales via the medium of food and drink. Oh, there he is. Got some dark sky rum there. Woo! Who doesn't want a bit of dark sky rum with their night skies, eh? But I love that kind of innovation from Wales tourism and hospitality. Is yep, we're gonna have some dark sky rum. Oh, that bacon as well. Like, what's that? Chocolate. Dark sky chocolate. Definitely need to guess. Right, David needs to post some of that to me. Must insist on trying that for, for journalistic purposes as well. So it's nice to see businesses trying these unique angles to promote the night economy and the dark sky as well.
We're currently at the International Dark.
That's a bit early. The next thing I wanted to play you is as David mentioned, I've been to the Cambrian Mountains a few times, and we're creating a podcast as well, which should be out soon. We're just working through some of the final edits. And I actually went to one of the newer observatories to experience what it was like stargazing in the Cambrian Mountains. So I'm going to play that for you now. Hopefully it'll play, let me know if not. Just so you can get an idea of what it's like to be out in these very rural areas, using facilities like these observatories and getting a real feel for what it's like stargazing in the Cambrian Mountains.
We're currently at the International Dark Sky Park in the Elan Valley. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning and it's absolutely freezing, but we're wrapped up and we're busy setting up cameras and tripods, fiddling around with the settings so that we can try and capture some of the Milky Way here in the Cambrian Mountains.
We're going to take a photograph of the Milky Way. It's in the perfect position at the moment above the Elan Valley. Essentially all you need to take a photograph is a camera. You need a tripod and a remote control. And then you play around with the manual settings on the camera itself. So you want to let as much light in as possible so that the camera can take that ultimate photograph of the Milky Way.
David, what settings do you have the camera on?
Currently, I'm got the shutter open for 13 seconds, f-stop 2.8, and ISO 6,400.
Let's see what we can get.
Okay.
Perfect.
Look at that. And you've got the Milky Way core as well in the photograph.
And what stars can we see?
Well, we can see a lot this time of year. We've got the North Star. So let me point out to you the North Star. That's up there. And that will give you an indication of where north is. It'll remain exactly in the same place throughout the night and throughout the year. And then the stars seem to move around that North Star. Also, we've got Cassiopeia, which is a W-shaped constellation. There's 5 stars in that, so that's more or less pointing towards the North Star. And then to the other side of the North Star, you've got Ursa Major, Big Dipper, or the plough, as we call it. In fact, in Wales, we call it a saucepan because it looks like a saucepan.
So yeah, that was when we went stargazing in the Cambrian Mountains. I do really recommend it, especially if you can take David with you, because he's got a lot of knowledge.
That was bringing tears to my eyes, you know. I was filling up a bit there, actually.
So that is actually a world exclusive cheeky preview from.
I'm not a big fan of my voice, but yeah, that was one incredible evening. The promise of dark skies, clear skies, and views and potential photographs is such a promise that you can't promise, really. And you just want to try and say, well, it could happen, it might happen, and when it does happen, that's when you think, yeah, it was worth getting up at 12:30 midnight.
It was
after a very long day as well, doing the podcast with you.
Yeah.
We just nailed it that night, going up that track, going up, you know, all the way to the the Stargazers hut, as we call it, or shelter. And there we were. It was calm, it was quiet, and it was cold as well, wasn't it? It was really cold at that time of night back in May. And you had my big puffer jacket on.
Yeah.
And we braved it for a couple of hours. We got the shots we wanted, and we've got memories, plus we've got photographs as well. What an experience. What an experience.
Magical. And that's a little bit of a cheeky preview for the upcoming Cambrian Mountains podcast, as we said we're working on at the moment. So that's a little teaser clip. That's a world exclusive.
I've also shared, sorry Pip, I've also shared a picture of Havran for you.
Oh, brilliant. Yay, thank you.
Just to show David how it's done properly.
Okay. Oh, okay. Missed my spot. Hang on, bear with me 1 second. Skipping through. Lost my place. Sorry, technical. Sorry, guys. Totally lost my place there.
No problem.
There we go.
Where
There we go. So why is stargazing important for Wales? Typical. Me and technology losing my place in my presentation. Apologies for that. So stargazing is important for Wales because, as we said earlier, that off-season tourism, we're spreading visitors out throughout the year, which is brilliant, because if you've ever visited Wales in the summer, in certain spots it can get very, very busy. So not only are we encouraging people to come at different times of the year, but we're also encouraging them to go to places they might not have thought of. You know, places like the Elan Valley as well, or those dark sky spots in the Cambrian Mountains. Certainly we're working hard to promote the Cambrian Mountains as an incredible destination for dark skies, for adventure activities, for unique accommodation and food experiences. So it's not just about time of year, it's about encouraging visitors to go to those more offbeat destinations or places they haven't thought about visiting before. So it's really good to inject some money into those local or perhaps more rural economies, which may be a little bit overshadowed at times by those very, very well-known destinations and tourism hotspots here in Wales. We've got decreased light pollution as well, which is also a positive, not just for visitors, but for residents year-round as well. We're creating those nicer dark sky spaces that can be accessed by local residents as well, because obviously it's not all just about visitors here in Wales. So that's really, really lovely for those local communities as well. It encourages investment in areas. David mentioned Rhyadr earlier. They are quite keen to position themselves as an outdoor capital, and they're also an excellent place for stargazing due to their proximity to the Elan Valley. And I've seen, since I started working with the Cambrian Mountains, a real focus on developing the town and the website and the resources in order to attract those kind of high value visitors we've talked about. And I think astrotourism offers communities something to focus on as well, and something to develop, and with that should hopefully come more jobs, more investment, more infrastructure, things like that, which obviously we want to see in certain parts of Wales in a manageable way, of course. It can create fantastic partnerships with tourism boards and local businesses. Again, come back to the Cambrian Mountains, mostly because I do a lot of work with them. They have developed lots and lots of really good connections with businesses and help them develop their touristic offerings, especially in terms of dark skies and things like that. So if you're a tourism business or accommodation, reach out to your local tourism boards and see what can be done. Are there resources? Are there ways to work together? Are there other businesses you can work with to perhaps develop those offerings or packages? And I think especially if you're looking to develop that nighttime economy as well, why not develop packages that involve dark sky events, or perhaps, you know, meals, things like that. There's lots and lots of different things that you can do, but it does take collaboration between tourism boards and businesses and all of us together as well. It's a very big collaborative event here in Wales to promote those dark skies and those stargazing opportunities. And we really don't want to miss a trick with this, because this is such a huge developing travel trend and lots of people have become interested in it, especially since lockdown, because there's been a massive resurgence in interest in the outdoors, rural experiences, unique experiences, and we've got all that here in Wales. So we really need to be shouting from the rooftops about that, and working hard and working smart and working together to develop those opportunities and promote them properly to visitors. Also promoting the natural environment here in Wales, because those starry skies are of course a backdrop to our incredible landscapes as well. So hopefully we can promote the landscapes by day and by night as well, which I think is really important. And also getting those key messages to visitors about keeping the landscapes nice as well. You know, we want to be encouraging visitors to leave no trace and take all rubbish home with them and things like that. And, you know, keeping those landscapes looking absolutely lovely. And I think there's a lot of work to do around that in Wales as well. So if I'm like, how to visit a stargazing destination. So we've got quite a few resources here in Wales, such as Visit Wales, the National Tourism Board. We've got local tourism boards. You've got things like the BRAC Guides, the new Stargazing Guide. You can use all of these things to plan a stargazing trip. Obviously, we'll be having the Cambrian Mountain podcast coming out, hopefully later this year. That will be a good resource because we talk about stargazing in that as well. If you can, rent a telescope if you really want to get a closer look at those stars, or attend a stargazing event. I know Alan does some, and I'm sure he can advise on telescopes and things like that. Another top tip I've learned recently is use a red light head torch as well, if possible, because obviously we're reducing that light pollution as well. There's workshops, stargazing weekends we've talked about before. There's lots of opportunity to attend properly organised events, and I know there's more coming, and I know places like the Elan Valley are quite keen to develop events in and around their new observatory as well. So make sure you're following these places on social media or regularly checking the websites to see what events are coming up, what's new, things like that. Get inspiration from social media, follow these tourism accounts or astrophotographers, things like that. Remember to follow the Cambrian Mountains account. David posts lots of stargazing photos, and you can get lots of inspiration about where to go, what to do, things like that. Where are the stargazing hotspots? If you're particularly interested in visiting the Elan Valley, it's one of my favourite places. You can check out their website as well. They've got good information on where you can access those stargazing spots, because within the Elan Valley, you've got stargazing hotspots that are quite easily accessible as well. So when I went a few weeks ago, we went to the Clearwen Dam, and all you have to do is drive up to the dam, park, get out, look at the stars. You know, you can also bring camera equipment and things like that with you as well. And we were trying to do it by low light so as to not disturb anyone else. But there's a number of places like that in Wales, which is lovely, because it's, you know, the more stargazing is accessible to everyone, the more inclusive it becomes. Certainly there's lots of stargazing destinations around the world where you have to drive for miles and miles or go right into the middle of nowhere in order to get those stargazing opportunities. And I think what we're blessed with here in Wales is we've got a number of sites which are easily accessible, which is great for visitors, especially if you've got small children, or perhaps you've got visitors with disabilities, things like that. And we're all about trying to make things more inclusive and lovely here in Wales. And I don't see why stargazing shouldn't be included in that. So there's lots of different ways you can visit a stargazing destination here in Wales and honestly just experience those majesty of the night skies. We really, really do recommend it. It's a wonderful experience, and it's really unique. you know, especially, you know, in a time of like beach holidays and package holidays, to do something completely offbeat and something unusual and perhaps something you haven't experienced before can do wonders, and it can create those really special memories, as David talked about, and those meaningful dark sky experiences. So I would recommend it if you get the opportunity, and it's right on your doorstep. You're based here in Wales. You're only ever really a few hours away from those stargazing hotspots. So there's really no excuse. Do come, experience our dark skies, stay a while, experience those local areas, and learn a little bit more about those stars and constellations. So, do we have any questions? That's the thing. If you want to know a little bit more about astrotourism from a sort of like journalist perspective or a media perspective, or just anything like that, I can try and help. As I mentioned, there are other experts who've got far more experience and knowledge than me in terms of astrotourism, but I can just give my perspective as a visitor and as someone who's trying to help promote those dark skies within the media as well.
Yeah, Pip, thank you very much for that. Really appreciate you giving your time tonight for the Argo Navis Follow the Stars conference. And I tell you, I'm not too sure if everybody else agrees with me, but your voice was giving me goosebumps at one point. And I've known you a couple of years now, and we've met a few times, but it's the way you present, the way you get your message over. It's really, really nice. And I'm sure that everybody else who was listening would agree with me that sometimes if you have a very good voice, it's much, much easier to listen to, as opposed to my strange one, probably, because my voice is made up of so many areas of Wales, because my family has been in so many areas of Wales over the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So I appreciate your time, Pip. It was a pleasure to take you out back in May for the first time, for your first nighttime experiences. And so glad that it was in the Cambrian Mountains and that the conditions were perfect on that night. And I know you're very keen to attend one of Alan's Dark Sky Wales events as well. And I cross my fingers that that event will be in the Cambrian Mountains at Hafren Wigwam in the north of the Cambrian Mountains. You have stayed at Hafren before, and let's hope that you can come up and join one of Alan's events up there. But it's nice to have a different perspective on this whole following the stars story, because we've heard from so many people today. We've heard from people who are trying for dark sky status in Sir Fôn, in Ynys in Anglesey, in North Wales. We've heard from a climatologist as well. We've heard from somebody who's very interested in the biodiversity of the nightscape, as it were. We've heard from a meteorologist. We've heard from Cambrian Mountains' #1 cheerleader, whoever he was. I can't remember his name now. But
bloke, I think
having,
it was, David.
Sorry?
Some odd bloke that came on, wasn't it, about Cambrian Mountains?
Odd? No, it was more than odd.
You saying something about Scotland, I think, at one point.
He was Scotland, yeah. He was Scottish. He was wearing a kilt. He was wearing a kilt.
Pip, I just got... Sorry, go on, Dave.
But you've thrown a different perspective, a different dimension on this. And yes, it's important for the visitor economy to embrace the night landscape. As human beings, many of us come home from work, we park up the car, we close the front door, we pull the curtains, and that's it for another day. And I just think if people of all walks of life decided, right, at 7 o'clock tonight, we are going to go out and we're going to leave our little village, leave our town, or leave our city, and we're going to discover what else is happening on this earth, or what else we can see from this earth during those dark nights. And this time of year is good because it gets it gets darker sooner, so you don't have to be up. You don't have to be up at 12:30 until 3:30, like we were back in May in the Ellan Valley in the Cambrian Mountains.
And as I said, you can get those apps, can't you, to see what time you need to go out and all that kind of stuff. So that's really
and there's lots of tutorials, as well available. Lots of tutorials available on YouTube, for example, that can encourage and inspire. But I suggest anybody who wants to learn anything about the night sky, stargazing, astronomy, astrophotography, that you do attend an event, a safe event, a well-organized event, such as the one that Alan organizes with Dark Sky Wales.
Yeah, just on that point as well, Pip, I did notice you mentioned about telescope hire. It's not always the best thing to do.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, people have expectations of how to use telescopes, and the reality is they're not that easy to start with. If you've got no experience at all, you'll end up ruining a perfectly good night and be completely frustrated. So as David said, I would advise going to an event. It doesn't have to be an event by a corporate company. It could be going along to an astronomical society, but do go along and have a bit of an experience with a telescope before you entertain renting or buying one.
That's a very good point, Alan. And I think perhaps, like you said, perhaps if they're more experienced stargazers, that's an option to look into. But if you're a newbie, those organised events. And what I love about those stargazing events in Wales is, you know, they're all sort of homegrown sort of companies, aren't they, as well? So you're actually helping to support, you know, individuals rather than these like massive sort of like travel companies. They're all sort of like Welsh companies as well, Welsh accommodations, things like that. So I really love that aspect about stargazing in Wales.
And that's a great thing.
I always that night I was up with you at Havren, at Stay Little. I just felt that what I was able to see through the telescope under your tuition, I just felt as if I was aware of all these celebrities in the night sky, and we were talking deep space here, which was what the telescope allows you to see. I felt as if you introduced me to some of these celebrities on the night I was up there with you, and just by looking through the eyepiece, and you saying that's Saturn. Well, I knew what Saturn looked like from photographs in books, in magazines, and on social media, but I'd never seen that detail with my own eyes. And to meet Saturn on that night, it was just phenomenal, Alan. It'll stick in my mind for the rest of my life, honestly.
Oh, that's good to know. From that kind of perspective as well, it's a transferable skill as well across all of Europe and all the people attending this evening. And there are astronomers and businesses locally that you can just tap into. And I think taking advantage of those and actually supporting them more than taking advantage is key to getting your networks built and actually developing a dark sky offering within your areas. So thanks, Pip. I was really informative actually, and I really enjoyed that talk. So
thank you for having me. No, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk about Wales. Happy to do it anytime. And you know, any excuse to try and improve my shocking Welsh as well, because I know David's on me about that. So it's not my fault. I spent most of my 20s living abroad.
It's okay.
Tell me, Pip, is it the butlers? Pip, is it the butler's night off?
Oh, Luke. He should be coming in with my hot chocolate now. I'm confused.
He should be by now, yeah. Is he there at all?
He is, yes. He's doing a bit of work at the moment on his podcast. You know, he had to have a podcast as well, so we could be a podcast family. Obviously, he talks about music, I talk about travel.
Well, we do look forward to finishing this podcast with, you know, there's just a few more beautiful things to add to it. And yes, there will be a Dark Skies follow the stars element in that podcast,
Mhm.
encouraging people to come to the Cambrian Mountains of Wales for daytime as well as nighttime experiences. So look forward to seeing you and hopefully see you before Christmas.
See you soon. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Pip.
and thanks to
Ta-ra.
Argo, Navis and Menter for putting on this conference and actually yet allowing speakers like both of you to actually attend.
And we just had a nice comment there saying thank you for a great presentation. So you're winning the bottle of rum at the moment, and Alan's presentation hasn't been yet.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Alan's. I'm sure it'll be excellent.
Yeah,
and
it
I'm
will
looking
be.
forward to- Well, I want to watch back some of the other presentations. I didn't have the chance today because I was writing about hiking in Snowdonia all day, so that's taken up an extraordinary amount of my time.
Another wonderful dark sky area.
Very true. Very true.
And you've
So-
got Anismorn as well, Anglesey, which is quite spectacular. It's particularly along the coastal regions and in the northern part of the island. So we've
it's on
got
my list. It's on my list.
you've got to visit. It's spectacular.
Mhm.
So thanks very much, Pip.
Thank you. I will
Thanks
talk
again,
to you
David.
soon. Bye, David.
Okay.
See you soon.
See you in a few minutes. Bye bye.